So we're making really good progress here. Next thing we need to do is to work on our login. Now that we have added a few users here, so we know that our sign up is working perfectly fine. Now we want to be able to log them in. So the user will enter their username and their password. And then if those two are correct, then we will show that they have logged in, which means we'll take them to a different screen. Okay, and we'll create that different screen in the next video. But let's focus on our login process here. All right, so let's give it a run. We should see there is our login, so we have all that information, which means now we want to get this username that they enter and the password and check with their base, and when they say login, we're going to let them know that they have logged in by taking them to the next screen. Let's go to our login controller. So in our login controller so far, what we have this login sign up, which we've been working on. Next, we are going to look at the login button, right? I'm going to say set to on click. So I'm going to say event and use here a lambda, just like what we did here. At the bottom here, we're going to create a new function. In fact, we already have the function, the method that we want. Yay! We did this a little while ago. So this method here, it's getting username and password. Let's check here. We're gonna say if username that equals empty inside. So I'm gonna negate this. Say exclamation point, or password that equals also empty. So if it's not empty, if either of those are not empty, then we are good to go. Else they need to enter their credentials. So let's go to our database handler here, and another method here at the bottom. This method is going to be public. And I'm going to make this a boolean because I just wanted to return true or false whether the person is logged in, has logged in correctly or not. Okay, I'm going to say is user logged in such. All right, so what are we going to do here? This is going to return something. Let's say return false for now. All right, here's what we're going to do. For that, let's go ahead and pass a user object here as well. To simplify things, right? This user object will have, of course, the information about our user, such as the username and the password. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say if username dot get username that equals empty. Gonna like this, or username dot get password that equals empty. Okay, if this is true, meaning if they are not empty, then we're good to go. Else, we are not good to go. Okay, if this is the case, let's go ahead. So now, okay, if all of this is met, meaning that we have actually found something inside of our username and a password, we're going to go ahead and instantiate our database here, because we want to go to our database, to our user table, and check and select all users where the name, username, and password match. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and say, first I'm going to create a string here. This is going to be query string. It's going to be select all from, I'm going to say constant, okay, dot user table. I think, let's see, users table, because that's what we're querying. Let's say plus where, say constant that username, okay, equal exclamation point there, say plus, say and, right, plus constant that password user's password, and say equals exclamation mark, and finish the query. So essentially here what's happening, we're saying select all from users table. What users table? This users table here, okay, where username is going to be equal, for instance, Paulo, if that's what we have entered, right? If that's the username they've entered, and password is equal to password, okay, depending which password they have entered, right? That's our query here that we're going to be using. And you can see SQL is very intuitive, right? It makes sense. It's very close to the English language. Select all from where users, from users table where username is equal Paulo and password is whatever password or something else. Okay, that's what we're doing there. That's our query. Create our prepared statement. I'm going to go ahead and say prepared. Call this prepared statements equal to. I'm going to go ahead and get our get connection function here, which has all the connections we need, which returns our DB connection, right? I'm going to say get connection DB. I'm going to say dot prepare statement like this. And what we're going to do, I'm going to pass our query. Okay, we're going to have a little issue here because it's going to say, well, we need to put this either inside of a surrounded by try and catch, just in case things go wrong, which sometimes they do. Okay, so now we can say prepared statement here. We can say dot set string, right? The first one is going to be, we want to get our username. The first one is going to be the username. I'm going to say user object here. So dot get username. Okay. I'm going to copy this. And then I'm going to, oops, I already did that. And next is going to be the second parameter here. It's going to be the password. Okay, the password. Just like that, right? Once we've done that, we're going to say prepare statement dot execute query. Okay, this execute query here will return. Now here's the thing. When we say dot execute and say execute query, you notice the execute query here does something with us. It returns a result set. The result set we saw earlier is the row that we are asking the database or the table to return to us. So this is very important because that's exactly what we need. Okay, so at this point here we can say enter, and I notice I'm going to change this to actually a result set, which means this will now return a result set, right? So what I'm going to do here at the top, I'm going to say result set result is equal to null. Okay, and then here I'm going to put result set to be equal to that. Okay, and then I'm going to return this result set as such. So now this function, this method here, let's change this name. I'm going to say get user. I think this is better name. Here I'm going to just go for now cs out and say please enter your credentials as such. For now, that's fine. All right, let's go over once again here just to make sure we understand what's going on. So I changed this to return a result set because that will be more beneficial to us, right? Because once we instantiate this database handler inside of our login controller, we are going to be able to call this get user and pass in the user information, in this case the user object, and then internally what's going to happen is we're going to check if the user object get username method is not empty and if get password is not empty either, and then we're going to query, go to our database and query and find that user, and then we return that row as a result set. That's what we're doing here. Okay, so this then we can do things with it. Then we can check to see what is inside of our row. So essentially what we're doing now, once we return our row, we're just returning this row with all this information. Okay, so now let's go back to our login controller. In fact, I don't think I need any of this anymore because that would be just redundant. I don't need this either, right? So now in the login, I can just go ahead and say, let's instantiate our database to make sure. I'm going to say database handler. Let's make it private. We are good citizens. Okay. Let's go ahead and format everything. All right, so inside here we have a database handler. We can just go ahead and say, because we know again that the get user requires a user, so we need to get the information that the user is entering and put in our user object so we can pass here. Okay, let's do that real quick. Here I'm going to go ahead and say we know that information we need is inside of the login user text field and the password. Looks like we have two of them here. We don't need that then. Too many things. All right, so we are here now and we have this information, login, user, and so forth. What I can do here, I'm going to say user, just create a user object. I'm going to get user is equal to new user, right? Like that. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to say user dot set username. I'm going to just pass our login text, just like this, right? I'm going to say user dot set login or password. Just going to pass login pwd. So now I have my object user here, which means I can use it. What I'm going to do now inside of our login button here, I'm going to just go ahead and say database handler object. I'm going to call the get user, and I'm going to pass the user, just like this. Right? Now this is indeed, so what we're doing here, we're getting the result, get user, which again returns a result set. That also means we can put it in a result set object. I'm going to call user row like that. Okay? So now that we have our row, we can, for instance, say create an int counter here just for us to be able to control things. And I'm going to put in a while loop. I'm going to say while user row, right? This is a result set, which means we're going to have access to the dot next, okay? Has the next item available. Of course, we have to put this inside of surround because things could go wrong. There we go. While this is true, I'm going to just say counter is equal counter plus 1, or I can just go ahead and say counter plus plus. That's probably better. Okay, so which means now I can go ahead if, okay, I can say if counter is equal to 1, that means we're able to find at least one item, one row with the username and password that we're looking for, right? We found a match. Then we can go ahead and say cout login successful. Okay. Again, because we use the power of object-oriented programming, everything is abstracted out here. Our database handler does all the work. We just show up here, and create our user object from the information that they are entering, the username and password. And then inside of the button, we create the user row, which is a result set, and we have to do this because remember this get user is indeed of type result set, meaning is returning a result set. This result set here that we are getting from our database, and we are returning it. That's very important. Okay, so now let's go ahead and see if this works. I'm going to go ahead and run. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use, let's see if this is going to, let's use Paulo here. So we know Paulo username is pdishon and dishon7 is password. Okay, let's see. Username is pdishon and dishon7. Let's log in. have a lot of issues. Right, the problem here we have a null pointer is because if you click on Java 55 login controller, result is saying this database handler hasn't been initialized. Yes, we didn't initialize it. We have to initialize it. That's very important. So we're going to say database handler is equal to new database handler as such. Now we have our object initialized, so we are safe to use it. All right, that's my mistake. I got too excited, but this is good, and I'm not going to edit this out because I want you to see that, you know, I'm human. I make mistakes too, and as you develop things, you will make those mistakes. The important thing is you have to know what to do when that happens, right? So here, again, we got a null pointer exception. This just says, hey, I get it that we have the database class, but you haven't created it for me to be able to use it. We have to instantiate our objects before we use them. That's very important. All right, let's stop this and run again. This time, hopefully, fingers crossed, as always, we are going to be able to log in a user here. That'd be really awesome. Okay, so we're going to do Paulo again. Okay, it's going to be P Dishon. Right, and password. Let's see if this works. And we're having the same problems. To avoid issues here, let's just move all of this code here, which is where we are setting up our object and getting login user from our user and everything and password. Okay, let's just put it inside of our login. So when they click login, all this happens. We create an object and we pass in the username and password, and then we call the get user and all that. I think that would be probably the best. Okay, let's save and run. Let's see if we're going to be able to log in. All right, let's go back. I want to try, let's try James. So it's J Bond and password. All right, let's try J Bond. I'm going to write a password. If all goes well, we should be able to see here. It's going to say successful, login successful, right? All right, let's log in. Look at that, login successful. Very cool. Now, to show you that I'm not making this up, why would I, right? I'm going to go ahead here inside of our while. This is very important because we are going through the row. We're getting the information of the row. I'm going to go ahead and actually add a string here. I'm going to call name, and I'm going to say user row. Again, user row has the row information, which means we have everything from that row, right? We're going to have name, last name, everything. Just to show you that this is true, I'm going to say row dot. I'm going to say get string column name, right? There's different ways to get the column. You can get by passing the index, but in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and pass the column name. Okay, which column name I want? I want the first name. Now remember again, it has to be exactly the same as we have them here, right? So I'm gonna go say first name. How about last name as well? First name for now. Let's see if this works. So we should be able to see. Now let me copy this, get rid of that, and I'm gonna append here and see if this happens. Let's say welcome, and we pass the name of the person who just logged in. All of this is coming from our database. All right, let's save this and give it a run. Okay, let's say J Bond again. Let's log in as him. And look at that. Welcome, James. Let's try Paulo here so you know I'm not making this up. So that I can show you that this is really happening, folks. Let's say P Dishon. The password is the same. Move this down here. So I'm going to go ahead and say login. And look at that. Welcome, Paulo. Yes. Yes, indeed. So if we had another user here, we could have done the same. We'll still be able to log them in. Great. So our app is starting to get really dynamic here, right? So the idea here now is that when they say log in, if results are good, we're going to take them to the next screen. Congratulations, and I will see you next.